Hey everyone. All right, let's see who we got. I see Yvette, Stephanie M, David, Yurka, Elena, Ingrid, Estefani. You're driving here to get the book? Vanessa, Erica, Miguel. Oh, Erica, you don't have to say hi and leave. Stay there. Francielli, Fabiola, Verona, Bianca. Bianca, did you get my reply? Okay. I see Millie, Muslima, and Chris. Give us the good news. We're all waiting for that. Give us the good news. I see you're here, so what's happening? Do we have a baby already? Because this is a class baby, just saying. Let us know. I think he turned it on, but he's not too busy with the baby now. All right, Jeffrey is joining us now. If anybody's watching on YouTube, let me know you're there so I can address you as we go. All right, so Chris is not there. He just joined. That was it. Okay. As soon as we see him, we'll ask again. All right, Stephanie M already has a question. Love it. If you're going to ask if we get to name the baby, I don't know. Well, we can figure it out later. All right, it says, I will not be here tomorrow. How do I make up my time? Skipping class on a Friday? Gonna be a good weekend, huh? So you just have to see, gotta figure out which day I'm gonna have this in the next class or in the morning class. If you have availability to do the morning class, then it's next week. We're gonna cover chapter 14. I'll tell you exactly what day. I just need to look at the calendar. If you're gonna do with the next class, then it's gonna be on the 19th. Starts in the next class, but it will be on the second week of that. Now, if you don't miss any other days, if you just miss this one day tomorrow, then you'll be okay. Just watch the replay. If you, I know I had to make you sweat a little bit, but if you if you miss more than 2 days, we have a problem. Okay, so you have to complete at least 90% of the course. Very important. If you don't complete 90% of the course, then you have to make up in the next classes. Other than that, like I said, just watch the replay. And any questions you have, just submit them. All right, looks like we got Chris. Chris, talk to us. What's happening? Do we have a baby or no? It's the class baby. Not yet? It was fake news? Ah, man. All right, one more day. Hold on, let's get Chris on the line.
All right.
All right, you're on. Go ahead. Talk to us.
We have another bump, but risk right now. Twins.
Woo. All right. So you're gonna name one Bruno and the other one
They're both girls, man.
Bruna and the other one. That's,
Yeah. So Charlotte is the name.
say it again.
Avery and Charlotte.
Oh, that's cute. That's cute.
God
bless.
Yeah, man.
All right. Well, we gotta wait a few more days then.
Yeah. All right. I'm going off.
All right. Cool. No problem. Thank you. All right. All right. Hold on a second. Glad I know how to translate questions. Winning is winning. All right. If you stop there, maybe. Like I wanted two kids. Yep, get them all at once. There you go. All right. So speaking of all at once, today we reach half. I did mention this yesterday, right? Today we reach half of the course, and some people are already deciding to take vacation, and some because they decide to have babies, others because Friday's no good. We're going far. All right, but halfway through the course, have you guys tried? Has anybody tried Quizlet? Do you have any questions regarding that? Has been helpful or not? Okay, see, Estefani, I can see you through the steering wheel. It's your hand, I saw it. Okay. Anybody tried it? Here comes Stephanie. All right. Fabiola as well. Saying we're not live. We are live on it. Is anybody watching on YouTube? Let's see. Do I need Facebook to get a hold of your quiz? No. All right, let me go here. So no, you don't need Facebook. It's in the student portal, but I'll send you the link right now as well. Okay. So I just sent the link there. You don't need Facebook. I did find out from Fallon, one of the students, that once she signed in with the Facebook, it automatically access. But as long as you have an account with Quizlet, when you access my Quizlet, because I gave you the link already with full access, you should be able to go through. If you have difficulty with that, create the account. It's going to give you a user or a screen name or user ID. Give me that user ID and I'll add you to the Quizlet directly. So you're going to receive an invitation to join. All right, Estefani wants to talk. Where is he? While driving. Okay. Let's see. You're on. Today's the on day. It's the mic day. There you go. Open mic. Go.
I was doing the Quizlet today at work, and I noticed, first of all, I got a 30%. And I was like, how is that possible? So I went back to the questions and they threw the answers. And answers were it would say it was still incorrect.
Mm-hmm. Did you do
so, I don't know if that's...
So you were doing which portion? The learn, because there's different things within it. Hold on, let me just open. Okay. So there's different things. You have the learn, write, spell, test, match, gravity, live. You did the test?
The test, right.
And he was giving you that?
Yeah, I took a screenshot of it after you do it.
Not while driving?
Yeah, no. I was choosing the correct answer, but it was still marking it as wrong, and it would tell me, oh, it should be this, and I'm like, but I did that. So I don't know if maybe that's like a glitch of Quizlet or what.
It might be. I received another one as well earlier. Well, actually, no, I'm sorry. Late in the evening yesterday. I did receive one from another student. I have to check it out and see what the problem is with the testing. Quizlet is not my platform, so I use Quizlet to create these flashcards and just put it there. But I cannot guarantee 100% the testing and all that stuff. As far as flashcards, it tells you right away what it is, and that's what I use it for, right? So for immediate identification of what, for instance, in this case, a devisee. If you click on it, it tells you right away it's a person named in will. So as a flashcard, it works great. As far as these other ones, the testing and learning whatever, I personally have not tested these. So I don't know if there's anything in their algorithm that could make that mistake. But I did have, it's not the first time, I did have last night one student, and I know a couple of weeks ago I had another student that said the same thing. The results, the answer was correct, right? According to Quizlet itself, gave that the answer was correct, which is the answer that whatever this is, right? So, but still made it incorrect. So I don't know. I know one of them? It looked like they were writing it. They were writing the answer. So I did receive from last night one of the screenshots. For instance, let me tell you right now because I'll tell you what the mistake was.
And if you spell it, it will say wrong. But that's fine.
That's what I was going to say. I'm looking right now, and one of them says the architectural style of a building that shares a wall, a party wall. And this person chose townhome or typed townhome, but the answer was townhouse. Makes a difference. In this case, it actually makes a difference because a home is where I live, is my home. Townhouse is the object, the house. So I don't know if it was typing. Yeah, it's written questions. That's what it says here. So it could have been the issue. If you're testing and just send me the screenshots. If you're testing and sends me those, then and you can tell that it's incorrect or correct, just let me know. Okay? And I'll try to reach Quizlet and with their support and figure out what's going on. But again, I created this more for the flashcard versus testing. Testing, I have the other platform. Once you guys complete 90% of the course, that one is almost flawless. Okay? There's always room for error with computers and humans. I might have entered something wrong. There's always room for error. But in this case, from what I saw, the answers were correct, and Quizlet is the one that's giving incorrect. So try to use it more as flashcards for now until I figure this out. I'll test a couple of times and hopefully get it running for you. Okay? All right. Let's mute Estefani. Okay. And then we have great stories. We have people that complain. And I have people that say thank you. All right, I'm just saying. Estefani had to complain. Just saying. Anyway, I've been doing Quizlet. It has helped me a lot. And thanks for organizing it the way that you are. Very welcome. Hopefully it helps. But guys, like I said, nothing is perfect. Even in the book, the previous book, if you were my previous student at one point and you were redoing because life happens, you'll remember probably that I called a lot of typos in the previous book we used. In this book, there's also a few things, few kinks, but nothing in life is perfect. None of us are perfect. So I appreciate every time you guys point out a few things. It gives me a chance to correct. All right, so I do appreciate that. Yvette, I have quizzes on Student Portal, but Quizlet is different. Yes. So Quizlet is where you get to test. Yeah, well, me too. So did you do the quizzes or you do the Quizlets? So Quizlets is the flashcards and stuff. The quizzes is that what's at the end of each chapter from this book. So you go towards the end of the book, all the quizzes are there. Yeah, avoid test for now. Until I figure it out, avoid test. Okay. And then we kind of get a sleazy thank you somewhere, like right there. All right, so make sure you take advantage of all the tools, and any suggestions to improve, I do appreciate that as well. So if you have any recommendations to improve, I'll take it. All right, so Jacqueline Johnson, you are watching on YouTube. Great. Linda, is good to know that you're on YouTube. Anybody else there? Just let me know you're there, okay? All right, and I think we're ready to start. If you guys have no other questions, we're going to have an overview of conveyance contracts. See, we talked about contract law before, right? And now we go back into contracts. Now, what does this word mean? Because we got to start with knowing what words mean before we can move forward. Very good, except for Miguel. I don't know how you got teacher as a conveyance. I understand though, because I'm conveying to you guys my knowledge. So yeah, you're right, Miguel. You're right. So conveyance is transfer. Ooh, Fabiola. Let's talk about this. All right. That conveyance. This could be voluntary or involuntary. The fact that it goes from one party to another is the transfer. It could be voluntarily because you want to. It could be involuntary because you are forced to. Like foreclosure, right? Escheat, eminent domain, right? Those are involuntary transfers. So I like what you did here, but the word conveyance itself simply means transfer, what I have here all over. Okay? This is good, but it could also be involuntary. So remember that. Oh, also real quick, if you guys know anybody that wants to take the course, we have the next morning course starting on the 26th, the next evening course starting on the 19th of, this is both in October. So if you know anybody, recommend them. Use this link right here that says earn money with us, and then they're attached to you. You start building your team wherever you go. Okay, but definitely take advantage of it. And to use this one, by the way, to use this link, the earn money with us, you don't have to be a student. So meaning whoever's watching on YouTube, if you want to make money, just refer them to the site. Next classes, boom, morning, evening. All right. So conveyance means transfer. We got that out of the way. Did you notice that I've repeated this a million times? Conveyance, transfer, conveyance, conveyance, transfer. There's a reason for it, right? A lot of questions in the state exam talk about transferring property. So if it's a conveyance contract, is a contract for sale or even lease, because it's a transfer. In this case, in this chapter, we're going to address, this is a lease right here, right? But we're going to address sales contracts because this is a lease with option to buy. Sorry about that. It was just a quick adjustment here. All right. Jacqueline, do not send messages on the group chat while you're watching the the video on YouTube, because then it gets confusing to whoever's on WhatsApp. Try to send me messages. If you're watching from YouTube, then send me the messages on YouTube directly, okay? We are using the book that you just came to pick up the other day, but we're using the second edition, which is barely any difference from one to the other. It's just organizational. That's what changed, and a few words, not many. Okay. All right. So where were we? Contract for sale. We're going to talk about the legal characteristics of the contract, how to create a contract. Earnest money escrow. If you guys remember, this is good faith deposit. Earnest money is good faith deposit. And contract contingencies. When you see contingency, we're talking about conditions. What does that mean? It means I'll buy this house if this happens or if that happens. So because most transactions happen with a type of financing, right? The most common contingency is financing. So subject to a mortgage. If I get approved for the mortgage, then I'll buy your house. If I don't get approved, you are aware of that, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. So if I don't get approved, I can walk away and you cannot sue me. If I caused the approval to fail, you can sue me. So that's very important. A lot of people don't understand that if you did it on purpose, you used your credit cards, you signed up for a car while you were in the process, all that affects your loan. So that's kind of like you did it on purpose. So if it's your fault that this contingency happened, you can still get sued, okay? So that's for buyers. Now, that's where we'll get into defaults. A real estate sale contract is binding and enforceable agreement wherein the buyer, the vendee, agrees to buy an identified parcel of real estate, and the seller, the vendor, so there's always a lot of terms to this, grantor, grantee, vendor, vendee, right? Agrees to sell it under certain terms and conditions. It is the document that is at the center of the transaction. So a contract defines, actually let's put it this way, there's listings, right? And the listing details what's being sold. A contract defines what's being bought. And the reason why I'm saying this differently than what's being sold, because if whatever's being sold should be the same that's being bought, correct? Yes? If I'm selling a house, you should be buying the house. What happens is in the contract sometimes we put clauses that override whatever's in the listing. The listing is, for instance, I'm selling you the phone, as an example, right? The listing does not state that I'm selling the case, does not state that I'm selling the charger, does not state, you see what I'm saying? A purchase agreement, after the negotiations went through, a purchase agreement said, well, Bruno, you're going to sell to me the phone, the case, the charger, all that stuff. If I agree to it after negotiations, then the contract becomes, again, the center of the transaction, becomes the platform for the whole transaction. And in fact, once the deed is created, is based on the terms in the contract. So when we close, it's based on the terms of the contract. Does that make sense? So what's most important? Is it the listing or the contract? What do you guys think? Contract, absolutely. Muslima, that's great. Both, yeah, but contract first. The contract is most important because I can list whatever I want, but that doesn't mean that the buyer is going to have to agree to it. I can list for $300,000 and the buyer offers $280,000. You see what I'm saying? So again, the contract is the base of everything. The contract is the platform for the actual deal. Listing is just advertisement. Franciele likes to confuse me, so she has one word in one place and then the letter 5 lines down. Estefani has joined us. During this break, we've talked a lot about Estefani, but now that she's back, please, guys, let's stop. All right, so back to this. The conventional transfer of real estate ownership takes place in 3 stages. First, the negotiating period, where buyers and sellers exchange offers in an effort to agree to all transfer terms that will appear in the sales contract, right? So, like I was saying, I can list, but that doesn't mean what's on the listing is what goes on the contract. Negotiations have to happen. Second stage is where both parties accepted all the terms. The offer now becomes a contract, becomes the binding sale contract. And the transaction enters the pre-closing stage, during which each party makes the arrangements to complete the sale according to the sales contract terms. So, step number 1, negotiations. Step number 2, those negotiations go on the contract. If we agree to the terms, we move forward. We are now under contract or pre-closing stage, right? During the contracting period, if you guys remember, it's now executory. There's stuff pending. And then there's the third stage, which is executed. It's the closing. So we completed everything that was during the pending stage, during the executory stage. You guys got it? So first stage, there's no execution of anything. Second stage, there's an execution of a contract and makes it executory, pending until we actually close, which is the third stage. All right, any questions here? Okay, so Chris, for instance, is in the executory stage. He's pending the twins. Once they're out, that's it, executed, done. The whole process has completed. Simple. All right. So at this stage, the sales contract has served its purposes and terminates. There you go. Other names for sale contract could be agreement for sale, contract to purchase, contract for sale, and purchase and sale, and earnest money contract. And even though it doesn't say here, I want you guys to write this one. Offer. Because in many states, the offer is the contract. Okay, so these are different terms that you can find across states or even within the same state, different terms. We start with an offer, especially, for instance, in New Jersey, we start with an offer, which is written in the contract of purchase and sale. Okay? So if approved, it automatically transforms itself into a contract. So it's not like I sent you a letter, which is called letter of intent, that's my offer, and then we drafted contracts. In many states, the contract is the offer. If accepted, we move forward right away. Okay, unless it's 5 units or more, it becomes commercial or considered commercial. Then attorneys prepare contracts no matter what. So a lot of states, residential purchases are offers and then converts to contract of sale once everything is agreed. Okay. We already talked about executory contracts. That means something is still pending to occur, right? Enforceability. Enforceability criteria. To be enforceable, a contract must be validly created. If you guys remember the 4 essential elements of a valid contract: competent parties, offer and acceptance, consideration, and legal purpose. So in this case, we have mutual consent is the offer and acceptance. That means I put an offer, you accept it, we're good to go. Consideration is the exchange of value. I gave you something, you give me something in return, right? Legal purpose, meaning you're not using this for something that's illegal, obviously. Competent parties, we're adults and we're of sound mind. And of course, this is a logical thing to be for every contract, right? A voluntary act. That means you want to, right? If you're being forced to, if you're being coerced or under duress, then it's not an enforceable contract. Because it's for the transfer of real estate, okay? Because it's for the transfer of real estate, it must be in writing. And this could be confusing because there might be a question in the state exam or school exam that asks about all contracts, right? What is one of the conditions of all contracts? And you're going to see this as one of the answers. Do all contracts have to be in writing? Let me know in the chat. Do all contracts have to be in writing? No, perfect. No, they don't. We could have a verbal agreement. So some contracts, the majority of the contracts should be in writing, and some must be in writing, like a real estate transfer contract must be in writing, or a long-term lease must be in writing, okay? The contract must identify the principal parties, must clearly identify the property, preferable by a legal description. You guys remember legal descriptions? You remember that? If you do, let me know in the chat what are the 3 types of legal descriptions we can enter into. We had a whole chapter for that, and then we also touched bases a couple days ago. So legal descriptions. You must clearly identify the property. If you remember, the legal description does not talk about being a single family, a 2-family, a building. Does not talk about that. So what items or what methods do we have of legally describing a property? Let me know in the chat. Jackie, I see you're there. Let me know the answer as well. Linda, if you're still watching, or anybody else watching on YouTube, let me know the answers. All right, Miguel just wrote block and lot. I hope you spoke instead of writing, right? Miguel. Muslima, nope. No. Mealy wrote mat and plat of subdivision. Yes. So Mealy, that's correct, but that's what Miguel wrote as well. It's the block and lot. But yes, it's actually called a plat of subdivision. Nope. Sorry, just switched. Nope, these are types. So Muslima, these are types of properties. Those are not legal descriptions. Location? Nope. Address? Nope. Plat and map? Yes. Block and lot? Yes. They're the same. Ooh, Nurka, we got landmarks, and landmarks are part of, what is that description called? The landmarks or monuments. Francielli, nope. Trees, yep, they are. Those are landmarks. But what type of method is this? What description is this? Yvette, yes, these descriptions that Nurka's talking about has to do with property lines. But what is it called? Property lines. This is where the property lines, what? Come on. Boundaries, yes, we're getting there. It's called point of beginning. Yes, we're getting there. Perfect. You guys are giving me everything I need, but you're not giving me the name. There you go. Meets and bounds, where the property lines meet and create boundaries. That's the easiest way to remember. And yes, how do we create the boundaries? Based on landmarks, based on monuments, the trees, right? Everything you had here was correct. The trees, the rivers, the rocks, the property lines, boundaries, all that is correct for the meets and bounds description. So we got 2 covered. 2 of these are covered. So we have the meets and bounds, and thanks to Millie, we have the plat or map of subdivision. There's one more missing. It's the one where we had a bunch of squares that Verona asked yesterday, and I said I was going to make a video. I will. Rectangular survey system, also known as the government survey method. Absolutely. We talk about townships, yes. All right, so 3 methods. Those are the legal descriptions of a property. That's what identifies that my property goes from here, to there, to here, and back to the point of beginning, right? Somehow it describes the property. An address, guys, or location just says, hey, it's right there. What's right there? You see what I'm saying? So an address or a tax location is not a legal description because all it says, it's right there. That's it. Just like the GPS, you put on your GPS the address, it takes you somewhere, but it doesn't tell you what it is. Do you guys get this? Legal description must be in every contract. So the point here is it must be clearly identified which property is being purchased. Is it this property or is it that property? Okay, it's this property. How big is this property? What are the limitations of this property, the boundaries, right? We need to clearly define what's ours and what's theirs. That's why we need the legal descriptions, not just the address. The contract must contain the purchase price and also be signed by the principal parties. So the seller or sellers, and the buyer or buyers must sign these this contract. Okay, written versus oral form. Can we get into a verbal agreement to sell real estate? Sure. Is it enforceable? No. It's only enforceable if it is in writing. Very, very important. Assignment, guys, we already talked about this and when we talked about contracts before. Assignment, novation, right? Assignment is where we're transferring the rights and benefits to somebody else and also the obligations. Okay? So assignment is you're transferring everything to another party. Meaning, I'm going to purchase, but then, you know what? Life happens. I can't move forward. I don't want to move forward or whatever. So I'm going to identify somebody else to take over my spot. Is where we call wholesaling. A lot of people think of wholesaling. Okay? Who can complete these contracts? Again, depending on the states. It says right here that a broker or agent may assist the buyer and seller in completing an offer to purchase. Offer, notice that it's not a contract yet. Offer to purchase. Provided that the broker represents the client faithfully and does not charge a separate fee for assistance. Okay? It is advisable and legally required in most states for a broker to use a standard contract form promulgated by the state agencies and or real estate boards. As such forms contain generally accepted language across the board. This relieves the broker of the dangers of creating a new contract language which can be construed as practice of law or unauthorized practice of law. Okay? So usually we prepare contracts on standard forms. At the time of preparation, like I said, it is called an offer to purchase, right here, an offer to purchase. Once accepted, it becomes the contract itself. Offer and acceptance, we've been over this many times. I put an offer. If you accept, great. If you counter, then it's a rejection. If I counter your counter, it's another rejection and so forth. So remember that. Any change or a change terminates the offer. It becomes a rejection. Okay? Equitable title. So equitable title, guys, if you guys remember, equity means a monetary interest in the property, right? So if we have equity, it's because the property has a certain value and we put certain money or gained value over time. So if I buy the property for $100,000 and the property is now worth $150,000, there's a $50,000 equity in the property. Okay? If I put $1 into the property with the offer, then my $1 has equity, has value in the property. So equitable title means during the offering period and the contracting period, right? I put money into the property. Once it converted to an under contract, so an actual contract, the contracting period makes me an owner of the property temporarily. Okay, I'm not the legal owner, so that's legal title versus equitable title, if you guys remember. Does not make me a legal owner, but gives me what's called ownership in equity. The seller, just like a lease with option to buy, like leasing a car, the seller cannot sell. So I have a controlling interest in the property through equity. Okay, it's like the third time I'm repeating this over the past 2 weeks, right? So got to remember that. Equitable title, it's because I have control of the property through the money I put in to the property. If we close, I become the owner by legal title. If we don't close, then I release the equitable title. Okay? Questions on that before I move forward? I even told you guys that this is the way that wholesaling is legal. It's the moment you put $1 in, as an example, It makes you owner, so you can sell the contract to somebody else, right? Otherwise, it would be illegal because you would be making money out of selling somebody else's property. And for that, you need a license as a realtor, as a salesperson, I'm sorry. Okay? If there's no questions moving forward, we have earnest money deposit or good faith deposit. Okay? Earnest money deposit or GMD, good faith, GFD, a good faith deposit. They are synonymous, meaning exactly the same thing. Great question. All right. Let's roll back. Next time, drop the question, press enter, and then you write the question. This way I know you're typing. Okay, it's just because of that. And I don't move forward, I stay where we are. So if you don't close, what happens to the equity? If I don't get to purchase something, but I put money into it, do you think it's fair that the seller keeps the money? No. So the equity is the money you put in, that should be returned to you. That's why we're getting into the good faith deposit portion. So when we put the good faith deposit, which is what we're going to talk about now, we're literally saying, hey, it's not mandatory, but in good faith, showing you that I really want to buy your house, here's $1,000 with the offer. If it's a higher price home, here's $5,000 with the offer. If it's a really higher price home, here's $10,000 with the offer. So you have to be realistic about, if you're buying a $10 million house, are you going to put $1,000 down? How serious are you? You see what I'm saying? But it's not mandatory. You don't have to put this money. That's why it's called good faith, right? Or earnest money. So if we don't close, this money is returned to the buyer or the person that put the offer, okay? If we close, that money goes as a credit towards the buyer's down payment. Okay, so you already put money in. And if we don't close, we're going to talk about that in a second. If we don't close because the buyer defaulted, the seller, just like in a rental, if the tenant fails, right, to proceed to comply with the terms of the loan, the seller can keep this money, okay, as a settlement. So what happens to that equity? The equity is the money we put in, and it's released either at closing, or if we don't close, it's returned, or if we don't close because of our fault, the seller keeps the money. Okay? Robin's asking, so if you renegotiate, like what? There's Robin. Let me see the screen. Oh, right there. Okay. If you renegotiate, like what? For example. Meaning you back out? Are you typing more, or I just want to make sure? Okay. Francelli Road. Oh, I thought you were writing more. Okay. So I didn't understand. If you back out, if I back out as a buyer, that's why I thought it was more, is what I was explaining. If I back out as a buyer, then the seller gets to keep the money because it was my fault I backed out. Right? If it's a seller backing out, then I might be... Why are you putting in caps? Don't yell at me. She switched to caps. She's yelling. There's no dumb questions, okay? No dumb questions. So, if the seller backs out, we're going to talk about that in defaults when we get to default. If the seller backs out, then the buyer has a recourse. The buyer can get his money back, his or her money back, or the buyer can sue for specific performance, meaning forcing the seller to sell. So those are the options. But the good faith deposit, it's literally to protect the seller if the buyer backs out, if the buyer changes the terms, if the buyer screws up the deal, right? So that's what the earnest deposit or good faith deposit is for. Yep. Is there any circumstances in which the buyer backs out and does not lose the money, like illness? So it gets a little tricky. It gets a little tricky when we talk about illnesses. It has to be something critical. It has to be something critical that stops me from being able to sell or move from this property to another. And even then, depending on the attorney, depending on the buyer, they might be able to force the sale. And I'm sorry, you figure it out. Okay, the buyer or the seller could force the sale. So it always goes back to contract and goes back to attorneys. But most of the times when you're under contract, the contract has to go through. I don't see any contingency ever say, hey, if I get sick, I'm not selling. You see what I'm saying? The contingencies would be if I don't get, which we'll talk about in a second. Contingencies will be if I don't get a mortgage approval, I don't buy. If the home inspection is not favorable, I don't buy. If my partner does not approve, I don't buy. Do you see what I'm saying? So contingencies are mainly based on stuff that's needed towards the contract. Unexpected illness or death, depending on the circumstances, might not be enough. Okay? So depending on the circumstances. All right, we got the third Stephanie just joined us. Hey, hey. All right, let's see. It's up to the and it's up to the seller or the buyer. All right, Miguel has a question. I have a question too. Are you stopped? Because I see the car moving as you're typing and looking down. Miguel, if you ever get into an accident, I hope not, or if the cops stop you ever, throw the phone away. I don't want them to see my name on it and I get sued for teaching while driving. Like throw away the stash, like out the door. I feel like Mike Miguel is the one guy I got to give the microphone all the time. So as the agent, we prepare the contract as per the client. So yeah, you never prepare a contract based on your ideals. You prepare a contract based on your negotiations with the client. So you talk to the client and say, hey, this is what I think is best in my opinion. Do you agree? If the client agrees, that's what we're putting down, but it's still the client's desires that go into the contract. Okay? So yeah, everything is per client. Sometimes I wish we would decide on behalf of the client. I really wish. But it doesn't happen. And some clients are stubborn. It's my way or the highway, and you either accept it or you don't. Simple. All right, so back to this. Good faith fulfills consideration requirements for a valid sales contract. In addition, it provides potential compensation for damages, as I was just saying, to the seller if the buyer fails to perform. The amount of deposit varies according to the local custom. It should be noted that earnest money deposit is not the only form of consideration that satisfies the requirement. The sales contract provides escrow instructions for handling and dispersing the escrow funds. What does this mean? It means I can tell you to put it with the title company, to put it with the seller's attorney, put it with the buyer's attorney, or even with the agency. So you could give me a deposit and I put that into our escrow account, which, for instance, in New Jersey, the brokerage has to have an escrow account. All right? You guys got it? What is another consideration? Could be a car. Could be love and affection. So many things could be consideration. Could be diamonds, could be certificates, whatever is acceptable. Whatever is acceptable as consideration. Here's silver coins. They're not a they're a tradable currency, but they're not a currency they can use every day, right? But consideration, anything that's of equivalent value. All right, what page? We are page 195 of the second edition. Stephanie M, can you let me know? I know you're going to type it already. Thank you. Page 193 for you. Yvette, I have to put this question on the board right now. Everybody has to see this. I feel like my time expired after this question. In your time, when you were little, how was it? I thought that was the question. So, have I seen anything other than not monetary? No. I did, as an investor, I did find a property that was abandoned, and that property had been sold or gifted to a family member, and the exchange was love and affection. That was my first time seeing love and affection on a deed as a consideration. But for real estate and regular contracts as a salesperson, everything has been monetary. But it could be stock certificates. They have value. It could be bonds. They have value. It's whatever the seller is willing to accept as an offer. Okay. Nowadays, we even have cryptocurrency. There's transactions being held with or closed with cryptocurrency. So Bitcoin, as an example. So I had to post it there because I felt offended a little bit. All right, next. The escrow holder acts as an impartial fiduciary for the buyer and seller. If the buyer performs on the sales contract, then the deposit is applied, like I said, towards the purchase price. Usually goes towards the down payment, right? Which is part of the purchase price. Yvette says, I'm probably older than you. Never know. But the statement itself, it's still offensive. That's it. I'm sticking to it. You could have been 100 years old. That statement says your time. See, in basketball, after the age of 34 is very difficult for you to find a player that still plays. In their time, you see what I'm saying? It's not about the age. It's like expired as a realtor. That's what you told me. How I felt. Every player has their time, right? All right. Strict rules govern the handling of earnest money deposits, particularly if a broker is the escrow agent. For example, state laws direct the broker when to deposit the funds, how to account for them, and how to keep separate from the broker's own funds. You guys remember this? Keep it separate. We talked yesterday about a Chinese word. You remember that? You remember what the word was? Let me know. There you go, kamingling. There you go. One of these days I'll get sued by somebody that's Chinese. Not Chinese word. Kamingling doesn't exist. I had somebody Japanese in my class once. She was laughing. Muslima, the 5 business days to deposit. Business days to deposit is a state-specific thing. So here it will be New Jersey. But in the final week, we'll go straight to New Jersey and we'll highlight and write these things down. But it could be 5 days, it could be 3 days, it could be 10 days. Again, according to state custom. Now, a sales contract often contains contingencies. Contingency is a condition. As you guys know by now, contingencies is a condition, right? And must be met before the contract is enforceable. Contingency is a condition that must be met before the contract is enforceable. The most common, as I mentioned earlier, concerns financing. If I don't get the money, do I have to buy? No. So the reason why we put contingencies into the contract is let the seller beware that I'm not obligated under any terms of this contract if the one condition is not met. You got it? So contingencies mean I don't have to move forward if it's not met. Right here, it is possible for both the buyers and sellers to abuse contingencies in order to leave themselves a convenient way to cancel without defaulting. To avoid problems, the statement of the contingency should be explicit and clear, have expiration date, expressly require diligence in the effort to fulfill the requirement. So it has to be very clear of what the contingency is. A contingency that is too broad or vague or excessive in duration may invalidate the entire contract on the grounds of insufficiency of mutual agreement. Now, a sales contract is bilateral. Does anybody remember what bilateral means in terms of contracts? Yeah, Erica, like I understood everything you said. Let's look here. Two-sided, both parties, both ways. Okay? Both, two-sided, both parties. Got it. Got it. Bilaterals, both parties. You're good with everything. But what does that mean? Bilateral means two sides, correct. But what does it mean? In terms of a contract, what does that actually mean? Both agree to do something, to perform their respective parts. Exactly. So it's not both sides agree only, guys, because in a unilateral contract, both sides agree as well. But in a bilateral contract, both sides must take certain actions in order for the contract to execute. You got it? So in a unilateral agreement, both parties are in agreement that only one must do something before the other one can perform. You got it? So two-sided agreement, there's two sides, and both sides, whether it's people, corporations, whatever, both sides agree, I will do this and you'll do that until we get to closing. A one-sided agreement, I will do this, and if I do it, then you have to do that. So this party is waiting for this party to do something. In a bilateral agreement, both of them have to do something consecutively all the way to the end in order for us to execute. You got it? So it's not just two sides, it's two-side obligation. Both of them must do something. Okay? Right here. Both parties promise to perform, to do whatever the contract says. As a result, either party may default for failing to perform. Note that the party's failure to meet a contingency does not constitute a default. Contingency, condition, right? But rather entitles the parties to cancel a contract. So if the buyer defaults, it means that they failed to perform under the terms of a sale contract, the breach entitles the seller to take legal recourse for damages. In most cases, the contract itself stipulates the seller's remedies. And the usual remedy I have here in green is the buyer is giving up or forfeiting the deposit, the good faith deposit, as liquidated damages. Okay? As liquidated damages. So very important you guys understand the difference between liquidated damages and what I'm going to go over next. Okay? Great question, Robin. Give me 1 second. I'll be right there. So, liquidated damages, right? Provided that the deposit is not grossly in excess of the seller's actual damages. It is also customary to provide for the seller and broker to share the liquidated damages. The broker may not, however, receive liquidated damages in excess of what the commission would have been. So, if we get to keep the money as a deposit, the deposit money as a settlement, as liquidated damages, the broker is also entitled to part of that money because the broker did perform, right? Now, one of the things that it doesn't say here, and we might address it later, is that it says here a little differently, but if the contract does not provide for liquidated damages, the seller may sue for damages, cancellation, or specific performance. What I want to show you guys here is, it says as a condition, if the contract does not show liquidated damages, then you can sue. What does this mean? In most states, it's either one or the other. You cannot keep both. It's either you keep the money that's in the escrow account, keep it for yourself, and liquidate the damages, means you settle, or you keep the money there and you sue for more. And that money stays there on hold until the lawsuit is concluded and then released with whatever the result was from the lawsuit. You guys got it? So it's either liquidated damages or a lawsuit for damages, cancellation, or specific performance. Okay? Let's go to Robin's question. Robin's question. Why would someone enter into a bilateral agreement? So, let's think about it this way. In the marriage, it's a bilateral agreement, right? In the marriage, if you tell your significant other, hey, I'll clean the house if you clean the house. I'll pay the bills if you pay the bills, right? That's not very wise, right? That divorce is going to come real quick. You see what I'm saying? I'll work on the house if you work on the house. So you put in that contingency. A bilateral agreement means we're both in agreement that something needs to be done in order for us to be happy. It's a 50-50, right? Simple. So in the sale and purchase, is 50-50. The seller must sell, the buyer must buy. The seller must do certain things and the buyer must do certain things. So it's a bilateral agreement by default because both must do something together to conclude the contract and be happy. So that's what it is. Just like a marriage is supposed to be. It's not like why would somebody do it, it's just the traditional way of doing it. Okay? Let's see. Muslima. What does sue for cancellation mean? To cancel the contract. So if we don't want the contract to move forward because you breached the contract somehow, we sue to cancel. So I can move forward to another property without having to be liable for this one. Okay? Verona is typing. I'm gonna write SE 1/4. Right, Verona? Oh, actually, it was 1/4 SE. That's what it was yesterday. I know you guys don't remember the class from yesterday, but I do. How can you differentiate on a contract, bilateral or uni? It's the terms. For instance, like I said, in the rent with option to buy, it says I'm going to rent and I have the option to buy. So it's the terms of the contract will stipulate what it is. I can exercise an option and I might not. So it's one-sided. Is there a checkbox? No, it doesn't say this is a uni or a buy. No, there's no checkbox. No. Again, it's the way that the terms are written. But again, you'll understand for instance, the header of the contract says this is a purchase and sale agreement. If it's a purchase and sale agreement, automatically is a bilateral. Okay? If it says this is an option agreement, then automatically you realize that it's a unilateral. You got it? So it's based on the wording, based on understanding what one is and what the other one is as well. All right, question. Stick to the topic. I forgot to do something. Can contingency in the contract, for example, the seller has to fix this, then I'll buy, change this to unilateral? No. A contingency does not make it unilateral when there's contingencies on both sides. So no. Because I'm actively pursuing, for instance, the home inspection. I'm actively pursuing the mortgage. I'm actively pursuing the things that will eliminate the contingencies. You understand? On both sides, we're both actively doing something. The key word is actively. Both of them are actively working towards the resolution of this contract. Where in a unilateral, the seller sits back, relaxes, and waits for the tenant buyer to exercise the option. The seller doesn't have to do anything until the buyer says, yeah, I'm ready to buy. You see what I'm saying? So in a bilateral agreement, the contingencies just means you have to do this and I have to do that. If I don't do this or if you don't do that, then we don't buy and I don't sell. Okay. Stop doing this. Don't worry about it. Okay? Just don't do that. Don't worry about it. There's no dumb questions. You're not being dense. I love questions. Throw questions. I don't care how. You can even ask me what's ABC. All right? And I'll tell you I don't know. But you can ask me anything. As buyer's agent, what's the advantage there? What advantage would there be to a unilateral agreement? So it's a very good question, because being that there's that stop yelling on my forum, Erica, please. Don't yell. Anyway, so what was I saying? It's a great question, because when there's, for instance, a lease with option to buy, there's a great disadvantage for us as a salesperson, right? Why? Because they might not buy. Oh, you didn't say thank you to me, but it's okay. Don't worry about it. I see how it is. Women unite. Got it. No problem. So it's very risky, because if the person doesn't buy in the future, do we get our commission? The advantage is, for instance, on a lease with option to buy, we could get paid commission. All right, now it's better. Thank you very much to you too. Thank you for the questions. So in the lease with option to buy, we can get paid both on the leasing portion and in the future interest to buy. So there's a disadvantage where we potentially sold the property, but we're only collecting on the leasing portion, right? And there's the advantage of getting paid on the lease and future commission on the sale. So everything is a game. Like, why would you get into the selling and purchase game knowing that we might not close, right? I know you're referred, for instance, by Mario. You'll understand that, for instance, Mario, when he started, the first couple of months, he didn't make any money. Now he's a beast. He doesn't stop. Like every other month, I have to hear him brag about the closings. But anyway, no, he doesn't brag at all. I'm just kidding. But it happens consecutively, and it's awesome. But we're not talking about the ones that didn't go through. You see what I'm saying? Why would somebody get into this profession? Some deals go through, some don't. So there's always a risk. Regardless, whether it's a unilateral or bilateral agreement, regardless, we might get paid. And if we do, we're highly rewarded for it. If we don't, it's the name of the game. Get another one. You got it? This is a game, guys. This is a game. It's the more times you shoot to that hoop, the more money you make. You're going to miss a lot of them, but some will go through and it'll be perfect. Okay? All right. So seller's default. What if the seller's default? What if the seller does not sell? Then the buyer can sue for specific performance. That means forcing the seller to sell. For damages, that means compensation for the money I put in or the money that I wasted in the whole process, or also for cancellation and don't come after me. All right, so the term cancellation is literally, hey, I'm going to back out. I'm going to move forward somewhere else. You're taking too long. You're defaulting, so you can't come after me. That's it. I wash my hands. Can't come after me. So you sue, or you send at least a letter to let them know, based on the terms of the agreement, I'm out. Okay? So those are the options. Verona, question. Conversation must be good on that side. Yeah, I'm talking about the two. She looks at Jeff. Jeff looks at her. Yeah, I'm talking about you. How long is the process to sue? Great question as well. It could be 1 year. It could be 3 years. Every lawsuit has an average of 3 years. But for real estate, because it is a pending deal, a time is of the essence, or an emergency, right? Because you don't buy a house because you want to close 3 years from now. So it could take, I don't know, 6 months maybe. It's something that could go a little bit faster. But always be ready for a year or more. If it's less, great. Okay? It depends on what you're asking for. If you're asking for specific performance, then your attorney is going to, again, file a petition as an emergent or emergency, right? So an emergent decision to be held by the court. So it'll be faster. Will he spend more money? Yes. The good thing is that if you win, the other side has to pay for the costs. That's the cool thing about lawsuits. When we win, we can pin the costs on the other side. All right, so sales contract provisions. We have primary provisions and secondary things you got to see in the contract. So the sales contracts can vary significantly in length and thoroughness. They also vary according to the type of sale transaction they describe. Some of the varieties are residential contract of sale, commercial, foreclosure, contract of sale of new construction, contract of sale of land, and exchange agreement, because you can exchange a property with somebody else. The most common sale transaction, obviously, is the residential one. Residential contract sale is the type of which a licensee should first become familiar. And that's why I always tell everybody, when you're starting this business, the best way to start is residential. Get to know this. It's faster. Even like Yvette said the other day, you can do rentals. Rentals are way faster for you to get compensated. So versus commercial or industrial or anything like that, because those can stay on the market for years. All right. I see if you guys drive around, and it's going to happen again soon. If you guys drive around, there's commercial properties for sale that have been there for like 5 years. Here on Broad Street, Broad and Market, there used to be properties that were there for like 8 or 9 years, almost 10 years available for rent. So commercial is great in terms of compensation, but it sucks in terms of time that it takes to go from point A to point B. Residential, faster. Okay, so definitely get familiar first with that. Miguel, how is short sale classified? I'm lost. in this list, it's a residential contract, or it could be a commercial contract. It could be any of those. The short sale is the act of negotiation. What type of contract we use is depending on the type of property it is. A short sale is a negotiation. You'll have, and there's nothing short about it, no, Erica. It will have there an extra addendum, an extra page that says this is a short sale and there are certain conditions that must be met. Yeah, but it's still one of these contracts. Verona, is the listing a longer period than 6 months for commercial? To address that question, and again, great questions you guys are posing, but to address that that question, a listing could be any time you want. A residential listing not too long ago was commonly 1 year. Now, because of the current market we're going through for the past 10 years, at least, for the current market, property sells like hotcakes. So if you have more than a 6-month listing, that means you don't know how to sell. A listing that expires nowadays is because you don't know how to sell. The fault is yours. So a 6-month listing that expires, the fault is yours, guaranteed. You either were not able to explain to your client the right price, or you were not able to evaluate the right price and handle it. I guarantee it's your fault. We're dying for listings. All realtors are looking for listings. Does that make sense? So it became a 6-month listing. It became a 6-month listing because they fly fast. And people didn't want a long-term commitment. People felt like, well, if you need a whole year to sell my property, then how good are you? It becomes questionable, right? For commercial, depending on what it is, it could be a 6-month listing as well. If it's a store, a regular store that has a turnkey business, right? It's ready for you to jump in, and they have promoted they have provided all the documentation. It could be a 6-month listing. If it's an industrial, like a factory, you could have a 2 or 3 year listing. The factory understands, the owners of the factory, they do understand that it's difficult to find somebody that wants a factory. You got it? So that expiration date, or that time period, is based on negotiations and how good you are at your particular profession, or your niche. Which brings me to the other thing again. Don't do it all. Focus on one. Focus on the other. Whatever you want, but focus on one and be the professional at that. Because if you're a professional at residential, you know that within 6 months, you got the property sold. Somebody brings you commercial, and you're like, I don't know anything about commercial. So how long is it going to take for you to sell? Could be 2 years, could be 10 years, because it's not your market, it's not your niche. You got it? So that's very, very, very important you understand that. Let's see. So it's on the contract how long the seller wants. So again, it's not how long the seller wants, it's how long you think it's ideal. So one of the questions, since you brought this up, Franciali, also a great question. Since you brought it up, when we do a listing presentation, it is key to understand, we mentioned yesterday, it's key to understand how much the seller wants for the property, right? I even told you I have somebody who wants to sell, they want at least $350, and I start adding commission, closing costs, and all that stuff to understand what the value on the market should be. And then based on current market values, it's not sellable yet, right? So the next question would be to the seller is very simple. How soon do you need to sell? Is this something you want to be done in 1 month? Is something you want to be done in 6 months? Something you want to be done in 1 year? Do you have time? Do you care? You see what I'm saying? Those are qualifying questions that will take the client and you to agree on the listing. So it's not on the contract how long the seller wants, it's how long we guys agree based on your marketing plan. Okay? I had an agent once that did a 2-week listing. 2 week. And also the reason why she wanted the 2-week listing was to be able to do 2 open houses. In the first open house, she had like 9 offers. In the very first open house, 9 offers. The second open house, she had another 3 or 4 offers, whatever, right? And the seller accepted one of those. It was a bold move to make a 2-week listing, but she was very confident that she could get the right price for the client. You see what I'm saying? So in the listing is going to come whatever time you guys agree. It's not the broker that decides. No. The broker gives you, again, guidelines of what the office would accept or would like to go, just like the commission. Robin, great question. What do you recommend, being a buyer's agent or a listing agent? In all honesty, right now, anybody that gets a listing is guaranteed to sell. Let's think about it like that. The problem is that it's very hard to get listings. Not many people are willing to sell. They think that this market is never going to stop rising, just like all the way up to 2008. So for you to get a listing, very difficult. So what will you get the most? Buyers. And then you decide. As a listing agent, you pretty much don't do anything. You list the property and then people bring you the buyers. So if you can get 2 listings a month, you'll be doing very well. Get at least 2 listings a month, become the listing agent. I have this guy, I know him for years. I think for the past 20 years, this guy has been like the top listing agent for Exit Realty. All right? Top listing agent. And that's all he does. He focuses on listings. Now, at one point, he had 120 something listings under his belt. Active listings. If you get to that point, your life is set pretty much. Especially in today's market. If you can get to that point, 100 something active listings, that's it. You'll be selling and closing left and right. But it's very difficult to get there. The skills to obtain listings and get somebody to sell the property or even open the door to you, they're very difficult. Not telling you not to, but I think the easiest thing to do right now is still the buyers. What's becoming very difficult to all agents is that buyers don't understand how difficult the market is, so they get frustrated and then they blame you for not being able to find them a house. So that's another skill you have to develop, is how to communicate your experience and the market experience to your buyers. Okay? So which one you have to pick. Okay? Jeffrey. You threw that monkey. That was a good one. All right. Elena, neither you or Jeffrey are in the WhatsApp group. His phone died. What about yours? I know how to read lips now. All right. Shame. All right, so where were we? Primary provisions of the join the Facebook then. So primary provisions of a contract. We have to have the parties, the consideration, and the property. Guys, we already covered all this. As far as legal description, we covered. Price and terms, we covered. It is important that all parties verify that the buyer's earnest deposit, down payment, and loan proceeds and offered other promised funds together equal the purchase price stated in the contract. This is where a lot of agents make mistake, is how to do the math for the contract. All right? Your broker, your team leader, your supervisor, whoever it is, needs to train you on this. Very, very important. We have also not available yet online. It's a face-to-face thing. We have also a contract writing course. If you guys want in the future, you can go to our website and purchase the contract writing course. Again, not available online yet, so we won't do it through Zoom, but in the very near future. So in the next month or so, it should be available. Contract writing course. Francielli, I don't know why it's not allowing you. I just shared the. Do you have your registered ID there? Oh, you got it? Okay, cool. Next, loan approval. This is part of the contingencies, earnest money, escrow, closing costs, possessions. Conveyance type, title evidence. Do you guys remember this? Title evidence. Speaking of which, can anybody tell me what are the 4 ways we can prove title? 4 ways we can prove title. Let me know. Okay, we have, let's go here. If you're watching on YouTube, let me know the answer as well. Insurance means title insurance, right? Certificate of title or title certificate, yep. Attorney, Millie is missing something. Erica, the deed is not proof of title. Nope, it just proves that a transfer occurred. Okay? So attorney, let's go back to Millie's answer. Oh, there you go. Muslima just gave the rest. Attorney's opinion, wait, of abstract. So we have to pull title search, the abstract, right? And the attorney will give the opinion. So those are our 3. We're still missing 1. Right? So we have the attorney's opinion of title and abstract search, right? We have title insurance. We have certificate of title. And there's 1 more missing that's not used in some states. It was a very weird word. Elena just went like, oh. Very weird word. Anybody? It wasn't too long ago. A couple days ago. Clueless is not the one, but it's close to that. Something like that. It's close. Not clueless. The small, weird word. Alien circle? Circle? No. Give up? Too late. Too late. Too late. Right here. Too late. Answer. Answer. Too late. Timeout. Rejected. Torrent certificate. So these are the 4 types of evidence of title. It's the abstract of title and attorney's opinion. It's the title insurance, the torrent certificate, and certificate of title. Okay, these are the 4 types. Not bad, not bad. Understand, you guys don't have to remember everything on the spot, okay? I remember when I used to be in class, and even though I knew the information for years as an investor, I knew the information, every time the instructor asked me a question, I froze. It was like a deer in the headlights, I'm telling you. I froze. I'm like, I know the answer, but doesn't go, doesn't move. So it is normal. You don't need to know it now. You need to know more when you get to the exam. So right now I'm just doing recaps with you guys, trying to bring everything back. That's all. Page 85. That's where it is. Okay, cool. Robin is like, seriously, I need to know that. So you need to know everything, but yeah, you need to know, like the question for instance, the New Jersey State exam, the question could say which one of these is not used in New Jersey, and the answer is torrents, right? So you look for the, no, don't worry about it. Look for the weird word, and that's it. That's the answer. But you definitely need to know evidence of title. You need to know title insurance, abstract of title. You need to know these 2 at least. Okay? Very, very important. All right, so closing costs. We identify exactly which closing costs each party will pay. Damage and destruction, so there has to be some type of clause that stipulates if the property is damaged, then the parties may negotiate alternatives or renegotiate, including the seller's obligation to repair, as we were talking about earlier, the buyer's obligation to buy if repairs are made, and the option for either party to cancel. The default clause just talks about the remedies. The contract must include broker's representation and commission. So we have one page that talks exactly about how much you're going to get paid. It has to be in the contract, otherwise it's not valid. Inspection. So we're going to have a clause that talks about how long you have to inspect the property and what type of inspections are authorized. So it could be radon, it could be lead-based paint if the property was built before 1978, if you guys remember that. So a checkbox for those mandatory inspection, or I'm sorry, those mandatory disclosure inspections must be there. Okay. Like I said, environmental hazards, compliance with the laws, due on sale clause. So the due on sale clause, it says that the party states, so this is for loans, the party states that the loan that survives the closing may be called due by the lender. What does that mean? At the time of alienation, at the time of transfer, at the time of sale, there's a new party on the land. Okay? Somebody that was foreign, somebody that was alien. The bank recognizes you, the seller, but doesn't recognize the buyer. So as soon as the bank finds out that somebody else is occupying the property with legal title, then how can the bank be protected that the bill will be paid? So the bank has an option that they can exercise. It's called the due on sale clause. And normally every mortgage or every deed of trust, which is like a mortgage, they have a statement about this. That if you do sell the property at any point while the loan is in effect, you might have to pay the whole thing at closing. And that's why the buyer must give the money and the seller must pay off the balances at closing. Who reviews the event? Who reviews these things? Are there... All right, so you need to know these things. So I'm addressing Erica as well. So this is for Yvette and Erica. You need to know these things as your daily activities because you are the one preparing contracts. Depending on the state you're in, like I said earlier, you fill out the form and you need to check box whatever options are here. So yeah, you need to know. I don't have it in green because this is just a summary of what's in each section of the contract. I'm more concerned of you knowing the concepts here and then highlighting certain things that will guarantee to be on the test right? But in real life, because remember, I'm here to help you pass the exam. That's my job, is to teach you the basics, the foundation to pass the exam. But as an instructor, as a salesperson, and as an investor, and as a human being, I feel the obligation of telling you in real life what you can expect. So yeah, you're going to need this both for the exam and in real life. It's not highlighted here because we've mentioned in several instances, and the due on sale clause is going to be mentioned in detail in the mortgage section. If I highlight everything, then what's the point of the book or this class, right? Then I'll just tell you, hey, read everything. So I'm just briefly touching a few things. I skip a lot because we have other sections where we already dealt with it, or we're going to deal with it, and I feel that's more important at that time. Does that make sense? And then Verona asked me to repeat. Okay, rewind. My example of the due on sale clause is, Verona, I'm going to sell to you. Okay, you're going to buy a property from me. The property is $300,000, but I still owe the bank $100,000. The due on sale clause says, this is for the mortgage, so it says, if you do sell, Bruno, and you're going to sell to Verona, we don't know Verona, right? So if you do sell, this mortgage must be paid at the time of sale. That's what due on sale means. The mortgage must be paid, the mortgage balance must be paid at the time of sale. So before Verona can enjoy the property, at closing, you must pay us off. That's all it is. Okay, so the previous owner of the property must bring the balances down to zero. This all happens at closing. This all happens at closing. You don't have to pay a month before. All happens at closing. But before the transfer or the conveyance actually occurs, the mortgage balance must be paid. That's what we're saying. Muslima, if you ask me to repeat stuff, I'm telling you. She just wrote, your voice is messing up. Is that on my end? Did you guys have issues with my voice? Nope, it's on your end. All right, next. Seller financing disclosure. So sometimes the seller might agree to finance the purchase of his or her house. So let's say you're buying from me and you want to put $30,000 down and you want to finance the rest, and you can't go through a bank. So you can't go through a bank. So you ask me, hey Bruno, would you be willing to help me out with terms on the contract? Right? Would you be willing to finance the purchase? The rest, I'll give you X amount of dollars and I'll pay you monthly over several years. If I agree to that, it's called seller financing. Okay? All right. To address Yvette's question, let's see. Did I miss your question? This one? Okay, so hold on. Yvette said, can you touch on my question? Yep, I can touch it. All right, next. So it says here, in other words, if I use a templated contract, who reviews if something's missing on the contract? Awesome question. Here's the thing. You're supposed to have a broker. You're supposed to have a team leader or a supervisor that's supposed to help you review the contract and make sure that it's fully executed or fully completed, right? After that, most states require that the seller and the buyer have an opportunity to review with attorneys. So if it's a state where you prepare and you're liable, like Texas, Florida, Arizona, you have to learn how to prepare contracts and you're fully responsible for it. In New Jersey, you prepare a standard form, and then once everything is approved, the seller or the buyer have the option, not the obligation, but they have the option to bring it to an attorney for review and make sure nothing is missing. But the first step is your supervising broker or team leader. Okay? Did I touch on your question? Good. All right, next. Rental property, so if it's rental, we got to address the tenant's rights. Or if it's rented, the buyer must acknowledge that the tenants, right here, that the tenants cannot be kicked out because there's a new owner. The tenant's terms in the contract cannot be changed because there's a new owner. So that's a clause that has to be there. FHA or VA, the condition here is that it's usually subject to the property value. FHA or VA, and we'll talk about this in a different chapter, FHA or VA will they will send a contract, and we have to add that to our contract as well. They'll send an appraisal, that will evaluate the property. You're buying the property for 200. If it appraises at 180, then you have two options. And this is going to be with this condition. You're going to have two options, either to back out or come up with a difference. So you either come up with the down payment plus the $20,000 difference, or you walk away. All right. So every seller will be aware, if it's an FHA or VA purchase, there's a condition on value. Okay. Floodplain or flood insurance. If a property is in the flood area, there must be insurance with it, guaranteed. So it's not only the homeowner's insurance, it's also a separate insurance just for floods. If it's a condominium, there's HOA fees. We talked about this the other day as well. Foreign seller withholding. So the seller acknowledges that the buyer must withhold 15% of the purchase price at closing if the seller is a foreign person or entity, and forward the withheld amount to the IRS. So this happens even for, we talked yesterday about the Bulk Sales Act, right? This is where you have to reserve some money, right? You have to reserve some money towards taxes just in case. All right, so if it's a foreign seller, that money at closing must go to the IRS to complete the transaction. Tax deferred exchange. We'll talk about it in investments. A tax deferred exchange is where you have a property, I have a property. You want to move to Newark, I want to move to wherever you are. And we exchange properties. If, this is income properties only, if the properties are of equal value, then did we have a profit? No, we just exchange two properties of equal value. You move to this area, I move to that area. We exchange properties of equal value. So there's a tax deferral because there was no profit on it. And again, guys, in certain areas of the book, we'll touch these things in detail. Merger agreements, all it says, again, as it says here, is that whatever's on the contract is on the contract. There's no outside agreements for this. It's just whatever's here. Notices, if anything changes, or if there's anything that I need to notify you, it also is clearly stated how to do so, usually through the realtors or through the attorneys. Any notice that must be given. Time is of the essence. Right now, it's a great time to be in real estate, right? Right now is a great time to be in real estate. I think it's always, but right now is a great time. The problem is, you got to get familiar with this term in real life. Toe. All right? And lately, agents have been stumbling upon a lot of toes. What does that mean? Time is of the essence. It means, guys, we put in the contract that we're going to close 60 days from now. There's a reason why I said 60 days. It's because I need to move in on the 60th day. Right? Or I need to sell the house by the 60th day. So time is of the essence is when we're getting close to that closing date and things are still not ready. So I can issue a letter. My attorney issues a letter to your attorney and says, hey, come on, time is of the essence. We're supposed to close by the X date, right? Whatever date it is. We're supposed to close by this date. And there's still a bunch of stuff that you need to do or your client needs to do. Time is of the essence. Either speed up to meet the deadlines, or we have the option to walk away. But in good faith, I'm going to give you guys another 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks. In good faith, right? So most of the times, that's how the toe or the time is of the essence is structured. Okay? Nobody wants toes, but happens all the time, especially lately. Appraisals are so delayed. There's so many, because of all this quarantine thing, there's so many things that are happening now. Closings are happening now that didn't happen before. And appraisals are delaying everything. Title companies are delaying everything. Attorneys are delaying everything. Realtors that don't do their job. Stuff like that. Yvette just wrote, this happened to me and the previous owner wound up paying me rent. Yeah, of course. There's consequences with time is of the essence. And one of them is also time is of the essence. If we don't close, I'll walk away. And you can't sue me for performance. Okay? You can't sue me to buy because you're taking too long. It's on your end. David says, that happened to us. We had to live with my parents for a week because our lease was up and we hadn't closed yet. Yep. Happens all the time. But then again, David, I'm not saying it's you, right? I'm not saying it's you. But then again, it does happen all the time that people reach me and say, hey, my lease is about to end. I need to buy a house. Again, I'm not saying you, but it happens all the time where we get where we get stuff that's where we only have like 2-3 months to find a house, put it in the contract, get you approved, not in this particular order, just saying everything. Get you approved, get all the contingencies out of the way, and then close. So this happens all the time. Okay? But if it happens because of your fault, speed it up. If it happens because of the seller's fault or the buyer's, let's reverse the buyer's fault, then you always have a chance to go after. Can I ask a personal question in regards to this? You can. You want the mic again? Is that what you want, or you want to write it? Mike Knight. There you go. Okay, go ahead.
So now that we're husband and I are our lease is I've been holding on for the approval. So what are your like time that's my here that comes we don't have a house. The landlord like, well, either you or you that.
Okay. Does your lease have any clause that allows you to give a notice to the landlord and leave like 2 months later? Sometimes you can cancel a lease by agreement. So if you start the process now and you close in 3 months, you can send a notice to your landlord, hey, we're leaving, right? And they'll be okay with that because as long as you give them enough time for them to arrange to get another buyer, another tenant. Now, if you're looking at ending your lease there, which is in May, you should start. Think about this. It takes an average of 3 months for you to close, right? So the 4th month before it closes, look at financing. But you should start preparing yourself now. So start talking to a mortgage person and say, hey, what do I need to qualify? Get all the ducks in a row, and then come January or February, you put everything together, bring it to the mortgage person, and boom, ready to go. Does that make sense? And also, by the way, you can also be honest with your landlord and say, hey, listen.
I was thinking of doing that, just telling her, see what she says.
But you don't have to do it now. What I was going to say is you're in the process and it looks like the process is taking too long. You can be honest to your landlord. Look, lease ends in May. We expect to leave as per the terms of the lease. But I would like to know if you'll be okay. If it happens, it will be okay for me to pay you an extra month at any time if it takes a little bit longer. So it's all a matter of agreements. Okay? If we all understand each other, if we communicate things to each other, usually there's no problem. Lack of communication causes problems. Usually. Sometimes communicating too much will cause a problem, but I don't know your landlord, so I don't know how it will be. You could have a landlord that says, oh, you're leaving, huh? So pay now the whole year and get out. You know, it could be something like that. Or no, we're not helping you. Right? So any of that could be. Okay? You're welcome. All right. David said, in our case, the seller lawyer held us up. Yep, it happens, and you could have sued the lawyer as well for that, if there's a reason for it, right? A strong enough reason. Let's put it like that. We're gonna skip tax transmission, survival. So the survival is not your survival. The survivor is the survival of the deal, right? So the survival after closing. So whatever you promised, especially the seller, whatever the seller promised at the time of sale stays with the property after closing. Like I said, in several states, most states, there's a law that says you have a statute of limitations of X amount of years to sue anybody in the transaction. Both the seller can sue the buyer for something he did not know, and the buyer can sue the seller for something he did not know and found out later. All right? And we also have how to dispute the resolution, which could be arbitration, could be court, according to state law, and so on. It's going to be a statement there also about the clue report. And the clue report is the comprehensive loss underwriting exchange. Pretty much is like Carfax. Carfax tells us how many claims against the property, right, against the car. The clue report tells us how many claims against the house or the land itself, okay? So clue report is the equivalent to the Carfax. Addenda. So as I was saying before, depending on the type of property and the type of things that we find throughout the process, there's addendas that we can put, or additional pages that we can put to the standard contract, right? So agency disclosure. In New Jersey, for instance, the first page of the contract is agency disclosure. Throughout the rest of the contract, at the end, we can briefly mention and then add something regarding liquidated damages, flood, asbestos, radon, tenants' leases, all that could be added. FHA, VA loans, seller's concessions, all that good stuff could be added. Okay. So the clue report, you can get it. Verona, you can get it, but usually the insurance company that will insure your property at transaction, the insurance company usually already pulled it. So it's pulled through ChoicePoint, which is the company that holds the database. ChoicePoint. But again, your insurance company at the time of insuring, they pull that, and that's how they give you an underwriting decision to either insure you or not. Okay. If you want to get it, you just call in your insurance company and ask for a copy of whatever they obtained, or you can get one now. Yvette has a question. Just because I mentioned Yvette, there's a question. Okay, you're thinking like a car. So pulling a report, does the previous owner's claims affect you? It doesn't affect you in terms of premium, most likely, but it affects a company that will insure you or not. So depending on the damages. The premiums for housing markets are totally different than premiums for car. Right? Because a house does not move. The house is there. So whatever claim was before, two companies denied you? Yeah. Like I said, it's the approval. If you want a good insurance company, let me know for the house. Let me know. I'll send you a contact. But it depends on the claims. So hold on, let's go here. So it depends on the claims. Was it a flood zone? Was it a structural claim? Was it just stupid damage fire claim because you forgot to turn off the stove or something? You see what I'm saying? So depending on the claim, that's what they'll do. Did it prove during the fixing of it? Did it prove that all the wiring is faulty? It's old, needs to be updated. So they will deny you based on the lack of updates to the property. I mean, there's so many reasons why they could deny. Okay, but anyway, the point is, they pull the insurance and they approve it based on that. Does it affect you in terms of premium? It's not much of a difference. A car is a moving thing, so it's always at risk. A house, the risk of a house, it's either man-made or an act of God, meaning nature takes action against your property. Hurricanes and stuff like that. So it's either you damaged or nature took an action, and they call it acts of God. That's the term for insurance claims that are made by nature. Okay. Do you have insurance now? You better. Oh, should be good. This is USAA is good for almost everything. Credit cards, loans, they are great. If you can get in, nothing can stop you. All right. Just say you have a family member in the Air Force. My daughter sells. What does she sell? Insurance? Oh. If I deal with a lot of USAA loans, I'm not the mortgage guy. As a realtor, I have had USAA loans. Yeah. Are they easy? If you're approved, they're way easier. It's guaranteed almost by the government. They're great. All right. The terms might not be the best in terms of interest rates compared to FHAs or anything like that, but the USAA, it's almost like a credit union. So their underwriting process is way easier than an FHA process. Let's put it like that. Okay. All right, so back to this. Option to buy. You guys remember this one? Who can tell me what this means? Let me know in the chat. Option to buy. Yep. Very good. So, awesome. So similar to car lease. Similar to car lease. Rent to buy, similar to car lease. So it should be easy to understand this. Yep, unilateral contract. Until the option is exercised. Once the option is exercised, it becomes a bilateral. So once I decide, yes, I want to buy, at that point it becomes bilateral. So an option to buy is an enforceable contract in which with a potential seller. The optionor grants a potential buyer, the optionee, the right to purchase the property before a stated time, for a stated price and terms. In exchange for the right of option, the optionee pays the optionor a valuable consideration. So I can put $5,000, let's say, as the option agreement. Okay, $5,000 is the value for the equitable value for the option. For example, a buyer wants to purchase a property. Miguel, I see you're typing. But no. A seller financed can also be considered lease to buy. It's a type of seller financing, type of seller buyer arrangements. But it's not it's a type of seller buyer arrangement, but it's not seller financing. Seller financing means you're paying me with interest. Here, you're renting, and later on, you buy at a specific date, but for a specific price and terms. Okay? Could I convert it later on to seller financing where, hey, start leasing, and if everything works well, you can buy from me, and I'll finance you the purchase? Sure. So now you're converting from a lease with option to a purchase seller financed. Okay? For example, a buyer wants to purchase a property for $150,000 but needs to sell a boat to raise the down payments. The boat will take 2 to 3 months to sell. To accommodate the buyer, the seller offers the buyer an option to purchase the property at any time before midnight on the day of its 90 days. So 3 months later, you can buy. The buyer pays the seller $1,000 for the option. It's like the good faith deposit. And if the buyer exercises the option, then the seller will apply the $1,000 towards the earnest money deposit and subsequent down payments. The optionee, so the buyer, lets the option, if the optionee lets the option expire, the seller keeps the $1,000. So a few years ago, 16 almost, I started in real estate as an investor. Lost my job, got into a car accident, and got separated, eventually divorced. So all in the same year. So yay. And I didn't qualify at the time for unemployment for some reason. I forgot what it was right now, but didn't qualify for unemployment. So I had nothing, and decided I would not work for anybody else because of the way I was let go. So I jumped into real estate, and the way I jumped into real estate was lease with option to buy. So what I would do at the time was flip or wholesale options. I would put the property under contract for, let's say, $10, $100, and then I would find somebody that wants to rent to buy, and I'll put them under contract for $5,000. So the lease option was $5,000. If they default, I keep the $5,000. If they move forward and they buy from the seller, I'll credit a portion towards the seller. The rest is mine. Does that make sense? So every month I was flipping about 2 or 3 of these back then. So I'd make anywhere between $10,000 to $15,000 every month flipping options. So the point is, the option is like the security deposit. If you don't exercise the option, you lose it. You have to let me know, what do you want? Do you want to buy or do you want to walk away? And it's by agreement. The option will actually tell you what you can do. If you're within X amount of days of the option, you might forfeit the option money right away. So everything is agreement. But it's a great way to get into real estate. It's like the cheapest option. $1,000 and you get to rent. And if you like it, just like a car, it's the leasest form of ownership, right? You lease the car, right? You use the car for the next 3 years. If you really like the car, keep it. If you don't like it, trade it or walk away. Same as the house. You get to know the house, you get to know the community. If you like it, keep it. If not, walk away. Now, an option to buy places the optionee under no obligation to purchase. So the buyer doesn't have to buy. But, as we've been saying all along, the seller must perform under the terms of the contract if the buyer exercises an option. So an option is a unilateral agreement. Exercise of the option creates a bilateral sales contract. See, now both parties must move forward. Verona. How did you do the option to buy? It was two options here. I would find a seller that would sell under those conditions, and I would find a buyer that would like to buy under those conditions. I put the option for $100. I would flip the option for $5,000. Pretty much it. And then the buyer, the renter or the buyer would buy from the seller at a future date. Because I did it this way, I had what's called equitable interest. Okay? So making it legal. Funny. You don't let me speak. That's what it is. I already know what the questions are. So yes, it made it legal because of equitable interest. It's like flipping a contract. It's wholesaling a contract. That's what it is. If I put money towards the option is a purchase agreement. It's an option to purchase. So it's a purchase agreement. Therefore, I have equitable title for the next 3 years. The seller cannot sell to anybody until I exercise or walk away from the option. And guess what? If people failed, to exercise the option, they forfeit their money, and I get to do it all over again with the same house. So I can re-flip that particular option. Simple. You're welcome. All right, anyway. Yeah, those are good old days. There's not many lease option out there because of the financing the way it is. It's so easy to get money nowadays that an option is mainly for people that have difficulty obtaining financing. So they have to get into private arrangements versus going to the bank. Okay, you'll find this more with people that really have difficulty and sellers that want a higher price, because you're putting a contract today based on tomorrow's price. So today the property is worth 300, the seller wants 350. Sure, I'm putting a contract today based on 350 2 years from now, or based on 350 5 years from now. That's how the options usually work. Okay. To be valid and enforceable, an option to buy must include actual non-refundable consideration. So the option must require the optionee to pay a specific consideration that is separate from the purchase price. Now, even though this is here, I keep on pointing you guys some stuff. State law determines what happens to the option and what happens to the monthly payments. Okay? The state law determines if monthly payments have to be credited, or a portion of it has to be credited towards the down payment, because they are in effect contributing towards the purchase. Does that make sense? But not every state has that. I can tell you right now that when I started, the guy that taught me is from Virginia, West Virginia. And in West Virginia is a little different than here. Here, every monthly payment must be contributed, here in Jersey, every monthly payment must be contributed towards, a portion at least, must be contributed towards the down payment. You cannot just keep all the payments and that's it. So where it says actual non-refundable, that's the option only, right? We're not talking about the monthly payments. And again, each state might have something different. The consideration cannot be refunded if the option is not exercised. If the option is exercised, the consideration may be applied, as I said, to the purchase price. If the option is a lease option, portions of the rent, as I said, may qualify as a separate consideration. It must also include the price and the terms of the sale. The price and terms of the potential transaction must be clearly expressed and cannot change over the option period. And it's customary practice for the parties to complete and attach a sales contract to the option as satisfaction for this requirement. So the reason why it says complete and attach to the option sale contract is because, again, the way I did it, I would have the lease and the option separate, but then to the potential buyer, I would have them both in one. The reason why we have these documents separated, right, with the seller, gives us that leeway to do whatever we want, flipping the option, but then to the other is binding. So instead of an option to buy, it becomes a lease purchase. Instead of a lease option, it's a lease purchase. So you're obligated to buy. You see what I'm saying? You're renting to buy. I'm putting you on obligation while I'm putting somebody else on an option. And that's what made it even more effective to make money. Okay? Anyway. My point with this is be creative. Sometimes that cookie cutter, you got to go to the bank and get financing, and if they don't approve you, I'm sorry, buy. No. Talk to the seller. What if the seller agrees? You see what I'm saying? What if the seller agrees? Then you make money on the lease and you make money on the purchase, as I said earlier. Okay. All right, next. Tough. How often do sellers agree? Tough. Very tough to agree. I know they want to sell. I can guarantee, this was my advertising back then. I can guarantee to sell your house in 7 days or less. Guaranteed. If you follow my rules, if you follow the steps that I've put in place, I guarantee to sell in 7 days or less. So the idea was, I put it in the contract with a future option to buy. So it's sold. It's under contract. It's just the contract takes longer. Right? So it depends on how you advertise. There's this guy on the that advertises a lot. I forgot his name right now, but he's a listing agent and guarantees that he sells your property or he buys it. What people don't understand is that when I guarantee something, everything comes with a subject to. So I will guarantee the sale of your house. Yeah, I didn't want to say it. I guarantee the sale of your house, right? But you have to follow every single step that I tell you to. If you fail at one of these steps, well, I'm sorry. I told you that we needed to do a pre-inspection. I told you that we needed to do a pre-title search. I told you all this stuff. You needed to be ready. Unless all this is ready, right? If you miss one, that's it. One small breach and that's it. I don't have to buy your house. My guarantee was if you comply with everything. Does that make sense? So you can market yourselves that way. I can guarantee any sale. I was just telling my realtors a few moments ago that you can close on almost any deal in less than 1 month. The problem is there's a lot of variables in place, a lot of moving parts. But the biggest variable of these moving parts are people. Right? Like David said, the seller's attorney is the one that delayed everything. You guys understand? So it could be the mortgage person or the processing or the underwriter on the mortgage side that delays everything. But if all ducks are in a row, when we start the process, we'll finish the process in 1 month or less. You got it? So I can guarantee that. But if you fail, I don't have to pay you or compensate you for anything. Those are the hidden clauses. Well, not hidden, but those are the clauses that are not disclosed in the advertisement right away. But that's how you do it. Okay? All right. It's the fine print. Yep. Very fine. Who doesn't get all the money? With the lease? So Verona's asking, but they don't get all the money. Now you need to understand what kind of client you have. You have somebody that wants to sell and move somewhere else, so they need the money for down payments, right? Or do you have somebody that has that property, and as long as mortgage is paid, you're good, right? So you need to understand your clients. But let me ask you a little different. For you to put a down payment on your house, how much money do you need? Let's say you need $30,000, right? As an example. So let me go to the buyer. Let me go to the buyer and say, hey, if you got $30,000 or more, I can get this deal going. So $30,000 or more, and then we agree for you to rent over the next few years or months, right? And then you will fix whatever you need to fix with your bank, with your credit, whatever, and you buy later. So you're asking the buyer to come up with the option payment, which will be the down payment for the seller in another property. So these are all negotiation skills that you guys need to learn along the way. Like, you don't need to give me $1,000 as an option. The seller needs it, and you cannot get qualified anywhere else, and you really want this house, cough up the money. It's going to be credited to you when we close anyway. So whatever your money you put there for the next 2 or 3 years, it comes back to you at closing. You see what I'm saying? So what do they have to lose? Anyway. All right. Again, must be in writing, must have expiration dates, legal description. Guys getting into advanced tactics. Jeez. So these are the the principal provisions. Now it's the common provisions. Okay. This is the election, notice of elections for the option agreement is when you have to exercise the option. Vanessa, that was a quick run. Very quick. All right, forfeiture terms. So how do you forfeit the contract if it expires and you don't exercise or notify the seller? The property title condition warranties. So the seller, option or, must warrant that the property will be maintained in certain conditions and marketable and insurable. We already talked about equitable interest, recording, assignment, and so on. Contract for deed. I want you to write similar to car. Oh, I missed something here. Financing. Similar to car financing. So contract for deed is also called installment sales contract. Okay? So it's also called the installment sales contract. Why? It's that seller financing that we were talking about before. It's not all types of seller financing. It's a particular type of seller financing where you pay in installments, right? You pay in installments, but you only get the deed. That's why it's called contract for deed. You only get the deed at the end when you finish paying it off. The reason why I call it similar to car financing is because when you buy a car, do you get the title to the car right away? You don't. Only when you finish paying off the financing. Okay? So contract for deed is the same as installment sales contract or car financing. You pay as you go and with interest, right? And you maintain the property. It's all yours, right? And then later on, once you finish paying it off in full or partially, you get the legal title. All right, so that's what we have here, and that's what I just explained. All right, make sure you guys highlight. I just explained it. And question mark. There you go. We're getting there. Trying to. If Verona stops asking about investments. Yvette, are the installments between the seller and the buyer? Yes. So this is a seller financing arrangement. So the buyer pays the mortgage payment. So principal, interest, right? All that good stuff pays to the seller. Instead of paying the bank, the seller becomes the bank. That's what happens. Okay. All right. Covered all that. Covered all that. Default and recourse. So, next question. True. If it wouldn't be too noisy, right? I would love to have instead of mute button, everybody open, but there's always so much noise behind. So it's like renting with an option to buy. So you guys remember when Miguel asked if renting with option to buy was similar to financing, right? And I said no. The thing about renting is that there's no financing. Renting is you're a tenant. It's just that later on you can buy the property. Okay? You buy a full price by financing it with the seller or with the bank. A contract for deeds is financing of the property with the seller, not with the bank. The bank's not involved here. In a rent with option, you can get a bank or not later on. Got it? Veronas, is there interest involved? With contract for deed, yes. With option to buy, no. That's what I was trying to explain about the difference. Contract for deed or installment sales contract is financing, so therefore principal and interest. The lease, huh? Anyway, the lease with option to buy is just leasing. Erica, have you tried remote schooling for kindergarten? Now that's loud, and they call you Miss Teacher. Anyway, I know how it is. I got kids at home. Yeah, but they've been teaching, and they have like pop-up stuff to show, hey, unmute, mute. Here's a button, all that stuff. So they keep everybody quiet in certain times. I promise, guys, I will get to the break soon. We're getting there. Contract for deed, the property remains, yes. So again, just like car financing, it remains, and just like option to buy, same thing. In these two types of arrangements between the seller and the buyer, the seller retains title until a future date. In an option to buy, the seller retains title until the buyer decides to buy, okay, or the tenant decides to buy. In a contract for deed or installment sales contract, the seller maintains the title. That's what we said here, right? The seller maintains the title until one point agreed by both that the title will be released to the buyer. Yep. And all liabilities on the owner. In both of these, the buyer is responsible for maintaining the property. So there are some things that the seller has to maintain, which is paying his current mortgage or maintaining the taxes and all that stuff. And then the buyer has all these other liabilities. So if the seller defaults, right, not doing his or her thing, right, the buyer may sue for specific performance or even for cancellation of the whole agreement. If the buyer defaults, then the seller might have similar options, suing the buyer to actually buy, or keep the monies, or cancellation of the whole thing. Okay. Other states provide foreclosure proceedings, which is a little different from state to state. Got this out the way. Ooh, break time. All right, guys, quick break. It's 8:05, 8:15. We are back. So 10-minute break. Go for it. Run. We'll be right back. If you're watching on YouTube, it will pop up again in the next 10 minutes. Okay? Closing the session now.